welcome to my new YouTube channel, David Restores Old Cars. For my first project, I think I'm gonna tackle something ambitious. I'm gonna tackle this green car. I'll see you in 6 months after my restoration.
In October of 2022, I went to Tajikistan with my friend and colleague Artika and a hired driver Johnny Beck. It was one of the most beautiful and fascinating countries I've been to.
Artika is nice and warm back there, enjoying the view of the mountains.
Tajikistan is a country in Central Asia bordered by Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and China. We were doing what is known as the Premier Highway, which begins in the capital Dushanbe and crosses the border into Kyrgyzstan and ends in the city of Osh. However, there has been up and down tensions between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Earlier in the year, there was a war between the two countries in a fertile valley with difficult borders and many exclaves. I won't go into too many details because I don't feel qualified to comment, nor do I have the time. Suffice to say, the borders between the two countries are closed and our trip took us only to Mugrab before we looped back to Dushanbe. I currently live and work in Kyrgyzstan, and in order to get to Tajikistan we had to go through Almaty, Kazakhstan first. Regarding the conflict, many Kyrgyz people are understandably passionate about it. Their country and those border villages were being invaded, and some of their frustrations stem from the lack of widespread Western media focus. Despite being neighbors, almost all Kyrgyz have never been to Tajikistan or have any desire to. I was always a bit hesitant and careful of who I mentioned my Tajikistan trip to. It is almost like telling a Ukrainian that I'm going to Russia for my holiday vacation.
We made it, Artika. KFC. We've done it. Look at all these puppies. Look at all these tiny puppies. I know, look at all these dogs. Woo.
Our driver Johnny Beck is from Mugrab. He is the local driver we hired to get us through the checkpoints, drive us to our destinations, and keep us safe. Importantly, although he is a Tajik citizen, he is ethnically Kyrgyz. And this whole western region province of Tajikistan contains over a quarter of the country's land. It actually only contains less than 1% of its total population. And most of the population is ethnically Kyrgyz, and the land even going down into China and Afghanistan has been historically occupied by the Kyrgyz people. For the Kyrgyz living in Tajikistan, it was not a huge problem while the Soviets were in power, because all of these now independent countries were united under one country. But after independence in the early 1990s, then there were problems. Most Kyrgyz people living in Tajikistan are wishing to move to Kyrgyzstan. However, due to the tensions between the two countries, the process of immigration has been very difficult. Suffice to say, all of the people we met on our journey were extremely kind.
Artika's come to Tajikistan to steal a bike. Here in Tajikistan, Artika, the road up ahead is closed, so we're waiting because they are repaving it, constructing it or something.
A huge chunk of the Premier Highway had us going along the Panj River, which separates Tajikistan and Afghanistan. The communities along both sides of the river had historically been close, culturally, linguistically, and with trading. It has all virtually ceased since the Taliban overthrew the Afghan government in the summer of 2021. This whole area that I was in is called the Wakhan Corridor, a seemingly strange border. This came to be back in the 1800s. The British were gradually conquering territory from the south in Pakistan and India. Russia was expanding from the north. The British and the Russians agreed to create a wide barrier between the two in order to avoid any conflicts that might result in a major conflict. Its remoteness meant the Taliban presence was sparse, though that didn't stop us from seeing occasional flags, soldiers, and checkpoints.
It's the Taliban over here. Salam alaikum. It's the Taliban army checkpoint over there. You see the flag? There's a guy down there by the river probably taking a poopy.
Two of them, 2 flags.
Yeah, there are 2 flags. The tactical pooping strategies. This guy over here across the river.
China has a huge presence in Tajikistan too. Firstly, to extract its mineral resources, but secondly, in order to transport their goods in some sort of 21st century Silk Road.
This move is called How Far Can I Get Into Afghanistan over this river. This river separates me from Afghanistan. Let's see if I can cross this river. Oh God. Oh, it's so cold. It's not bad. It's not actually that cold. All right. This river here, I got as far as that rock over there. That's more than halfway across. I consider that a success. Oh God, that water was cold.
Since the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, military presence on the Tajik side has massively increased to prevent the spread of religious extremists spilling out of Afghanistan. While some of this Tajik military funding was from Russia, China has been heavily funding the Tajik army the most. Along the border, we saw frequent Tajik soldiers on border patrol, always on foot, in groups of 4, sometimes with a dog. It was sometimes odd coming across these soldiers because we would be out in the middle of nowhere, and for them they would sometimes be many hours of walking to the next closest civilization. There was a lot ongoing construction of small Tajik army bases, some clearly new Chinese military trucks, and a lot of barriers along the road. These barriers serve as firing positions from Tajikistan for when they need to fire back into Afghanistan. For instance, a month before our arrival from the Afghan side, the Taliban were firing bullets at the Chinese trucks involved in repaving the road and extracting resources. Hence why China is trying to repave the road quicker and fund the Tajik military border. All of these issues do make Pamir Highway a very dangerous place. In fact, we needed to get a special visa just for this province, and we had to pass through many checkpoints. Johnny Beck occasionally slipped some cash into the hands of some of the border guards as bribes. Most of these problems do not weigh heavily on the Tajik people's mind, and they continue to live a nice life in what I can say is the most beautiful country I've ever been to.